You're not going to believe what I've uncovered about the hidden origins of the manned Mars mission. Let's get into it.
Come on, let's go. Let's look for UFOs from the secret space program.
Joe here from JoeFromCarolinas.com to explore facts beyond the explained. Follow the logic and follow the data by subscribing. Consider this. Why Mars? Well, Elon Musk has been planning through SpaceX a Mars colony to be established sometime in the 2030s. It's made massive headlines all over recently. The hidden origin of a manned Mars mission dates back over 60 years. This is nothing new. Did it come from science fiction, you may ask? Well, if you consider science fiction written by a brilliant NASA physicist who also happened to create many of the rockets that were used during the Second World War, I guess you could say it was science fiction. Who are you talking about? Wernher Von Braun. Who? Having developed the V2 rocket and earned his doctorate degree while he was in the German military, Von Braun was a prized intelligence asset. And so when he was brought over, he was immediately put into protective custody. He was given a cover, and most importantly, he was given a security clearance. That's right. Von Braun actually became very tired of rocket technology rather quickly, and he set his sights on the red planet, Mars, for human exploration. And according to a paper that he wrote in the 1950s, quote, "The planet Mars is the logical first objective of a manned interplanetary expedition. Its clear atmosphere and weak gravitational field seems to make a landing on the Martian surface much easier." Now, the question has been hotly debated for numbers of years, but what I'm trying to prove to you today is that it's possible to fly to Mars and back with chemical propellants. Quote, Dr. Wernher Von Braun, Director of the Development Operations Division, Army Ballistic Missile Agency in Redstone Arsenal, Alabama. Let's hear from Dr. Wernher Von Braun himself in this recording kindly provided by the University of Alabama, Huntsville, where, by the way, Dr. Von Braun resided and worked at the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. Here we go.
Many people believe that the likelihood of finding even some not very higher forms of life, but at least some higher forms of vegetation on Mars is quite good. Now, I think needless to say, if we do find evidence of life on Mars, the rush will be on again, and man probably wants to follow unmanned exploration. Let me say this, we made a study in NASA while the Apollo program were still alive on how we would send a man to Mars with modern technology. And a scheme emerged that looked something like this. You would build 2 interplanetary spaceships in a low Earth orbit from parts flown up there with a shuttle, modularized parts that are stuck together in Earth orbit. You would, of course, also fuel these 2 interplanetary spaceships with propellant brought up by the shuttle. These ships would have a nuclear rocket engine. NASA had developed, jointly with AEC, a nuclear reactor engine that is essentially a reactor that operates at 5,000 degrees with a lot of channels leading through the reactor through which you pump liquid hydrogen. And this nuclear rocket engine, run in each of these 2 interplanetary ships, would go through several maneuvers. One, drive the ship out of Earth orbit on a trans-Mars trajectory. Then there would be a free coasting period, several months, by the way, going to Mars. Then the second maneuver would be the capture maneuver of the ship into a circummarching orbit. And the 2 ships would remain in that circummarching orbit, pretty much like we kept the Apollo Command and Service Module in orbit around the Moon, and made the landing with a separate LEM vehicle. You remember how it was done in Apollo. Now, there would also be a separate Martian version of the LEM, a chemically powered vehicle capable of making a soft landing on Mars and the upper stage flying back to the 2 ships left circling in Martian orbit for a rendezvous docking maneuver. And this Martian limb would then be abandoned, and the return flight would be conducted with the nuclear-powered ship again. There would be a third power maneuver driving the ships out of the Martian orbit, and finally a fourth maneuver capturing them back into the Earth's gravitational field, from which the crew would be recovered again with a shuttle. That's essentially the scheme. Now, such a program would roughly cost as much as the Apollo program, not more, but also not less. I think it would probably not involve 3 people, but a dozen people going to Mars, because the travel time of the entire expedition would be on the order of 1.5 years. So you would like to take a cook and a doctor and everything else along. You know, it's a little more like an expedition on a sailing ship, times of Magellan.
Von Braun detailed out exactly how to launch and build large transportation ships in low Earth orbit to send humans to Mars and bring them back again. The Space Task Force of 1969 seriously considered this, to the point where they developed a timeline for a manned Mars landing, for crying out loud. And the date of when this was actually supposed to hit the ground on Martian soil was 1982. They would develop Nerva engines with nuclear shuttles. They would develop and utilize the space shuttle beginning in 1971. They would have a mission module built, and the Mars excursion module, as well as sample return probe, would all be launched by 1976. Now, this is what blew my mind. I've uncovered a formerly top secret document from the Central Intelligence Agency, dated September of 1968, where the Central Intelligence Agency is in a phone call with Dr. Wernher Von Braun at the Marshall Space Flight Center. Von Braun calls the contact in this memo and asks the contact what he's allowed to talk about and not allowed to talk about regarding classified information during a media interview. And the director of the Foreign Missile and Space Analysis Center says in this CIA document, quote, "Since Dr. Von Braun is SI-TK cleared, I divulged to him a considerable amount of information we have from these sources." Follow the logic. Von Braun is reported by the CIA to have a security clearance in 1968. He had already been planning a manned Mars mission with NASA support, working for NASA as a director all through the 60s. Do you think it's possible that maybe some other agencies were gathering intelligence about Dr. Von Braun's plans for a manned Mars mission? In follow-up NASA documents, there's even plans to have a semi-permanent base with 48 men on the surface and 24 men in orbit around Mars. I've looked at thousands of pages of official source material document just for you. If you're interested in exploring some of the links to follow this data, you can check the description box down below. And while you're down there, let me know what you think about what's really going on as far as a manned Mars mission that may still be classified. There are many, many more facts beyond what's already been explained, as well as deeper secrets within the history of the space race, both in the past as well as in modern times. There's a video that you might be interested in right here, and support options as well if you value this research.